Saturday Night tells the true story of what happened on the first episode of Saturday Night Live, providing a reenactment of the beginning of the long-running series. NBC launched the first season of NBC's Saturday Night in 1975 after Dick Ebersol hired Lorne Michaels to create a new piece of late-night programming. The importance and legacy of the sketch comedy show grew in the decades that followed, with it becoming a place where many famous comedians, such as Eddie Murphy, Will Ferrell, Amy Poehler, and Adam Sandler, became breakout stars. While multiple Saturday Night Live skits became movies over the years, it took until 2024 for a movie to be made specifically about the show itself. Directed by Jason Reitman, Saturday Night tackles the true story of the show's origin, bringing in a cast of young, rising stars to play some of SNL's most important cast members, creators, and more. The movie is about the 90 minutes leading up to the debut of Saturday Night Live's first episode, making the film responsible for telling the true story and events as accurately as possible. Saturday Night is based on the true story of SNL's first episode. The debut came on October 11, 1975. The cast of Saturday Night sitting on the set posing for a picture in Saturday Night. The true story that Saturday Night revolves around are the events that occurred on October 11, 1975. This is the night that the first episode of the show that became known as Saturday Night Live aired on NBC. At the time, it was known as NBC's Saturday Night because ABC already had Saturday Night Live with Howard Cosell on the air. NBC's need for Saturday Night Live came from Johnny Carson's request to not do live shows on a few weeknights and the company no longer wanting to air reruns of earlier episodes of The Tonight Show in those slots. The original goal for NBC's Saturday Night was to be a 90-minute variety show for late-night audiences, and Lorne Michaels worked on its development during the mid-1970s. The show was finally ready to go in 1975 after assembling a cast of young comedians, who became known as the Not Ready for Prime Time Players, and a talented writer's room. Although Saturday Night Live evolved into becoming a full sketch show with one celebrity host participating in the sketches and a musical guest, the show originally was more divided between the host's abilities, sketches, and musical performances. Who was part of SNL's first episode in 1975. The first cast members and guests. Saturday Night Live Weekend Update cast, including John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. The first episode of Saturday Night Live included the core cast members who would mostly be around for the entire first season or beyond. The Not Ready for Primetime players included Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, Chevy Chase, Jane Curtin, Garrett Morris, Lorraine Newman, Gilda Radner, George Coe, and Michael O'Donoghue at the start. Coe did not return after the first episode. There were also a number of uncredited cameos from Richard Belzer, Tom Davis, Audrey Pert-Dickman, Ul Franken, Neil Levi, Don Pardo, Tom Schiller, Paul Simon, Akira Yoshimura, Alan Zwiebel, Jacqueline Carlin, Wendell Craig, and Clifford Einstein. There were also several other individuals involved in Saturday Night's first episode who were not part of the main Saturday Night cast members. Comedian George Carlin was the host, while Billy Preston and Janice Ian were the musical guests. Comedians Valerie Bromfield and Andy Kaufman also appeared to do solo sketches and routines. Billy Crystal was originally scheduled to have a set as well, but his was cut from the live show. What sketches were done on SNL's first episode? An iconic sketch began. Chevy Chase hosting Weekend Update in Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night's first episode was very different from what the show became, as the sketch comedy was split up by different comedic and musical performances. There were still a few typical sketches that were done. O'Donoghue and Belushi did the cold open called The Wolverines. Sketches known as New Dad, Trial, Victims of Shark Bite, Jamitol, Triapenin, B Hospital, Academy of Better Careers, Home Securities, and Triple Track were all included. Jim Henson and the Muppets even contributed by doing The Land of Gorge. Pre-recorded sketches with Albert Brooks and one called Show Us Your Guns also were aired. The most notable of the sketches included in the first episode of NBC's Saturday Night is the first edition of Weekend Update. Chevy Chase and Herb Sargent were responsible for creating it. Chevy Chase was the Weekend Update anchor for the entire first season and a few in season 2. The segment became a staple of the show, appearing in every single episode of Saturday Night Live since then. One plot point in Saturday Night is the suggestion that NBC wanted Lorne Michaels and Saturday Night Live to fail. Although the movie chronicles the true story of SNL's origins, there is no evidence to suggest that the studio wanted Lorne Michaels' show to be anything other than a success. NBC needed Saturday Night Live to fill a big hole in its programming schedule after Johnny Carson's request. While giving a relatively unproven producer and cast of unknowns the responsibility of replacing a time slot Carson occupied was certainly a risk, the suggestion that NBC was secretly rooting against the show's success is just for narrative purposes. It gives Lorne Michaels and the entire success of Saturday Night Live a bit more of an underdog success story feeling. That said, NBC probably did have some doubts about the show's long-term viability and did not think it would run for half a century and spawn a movie like Saturday Night. How accurate Saturday Night is to the true story. The film takes a lot of creative liberties with the true story. While Saturday Night does capture an authentic sense of the chaotic energy leading up to the premiere of the first episode of Saturday Night Live, the film does alter several true story details and even creates completely new scenes that never happened. Scenes such as John Belushi ice skating at Rockefeller Center's 20 minutes before the first SNL episode went live in Saturday Night's ending. Milton Berle flashing Chevy Chase after hitting on his fiancée Jacqueline Carlin, Johnny Carson's intimidating phone call to Lorne Michaels, and host George Carlin getting lockjaw from doing too much cocaine never actually occurred. There were also several true and somewhat accurate moments in Saturday Night whose timing and emphasis were altered in order to fit into the film. Chevy Chase got into a fight backstage with Bill Murray, not John Belushi, during Season 3 of SNL, although Belushi was said to have instigated the confrontation.